right. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, to make sure that I'm not just talking and nobody's listening to me, can you at least give me a thumbs up or a yes, or I can hear you in the chat to make sure? Nicole Davis, shout out to you. And especially if you have parents there. I don't know if our parents are English speakers, Spanish speakers, pero si hablan en español, gracias por estar ahí también. Okay. So if you speak Spanish, thank you for being there too. Okay. I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. I'm going to challenge everyone to be more like Nicole. I want to see more parents on as a group or with one another, however you want to do it. Okay. So thank you. And Matthew, I don't know how this works in terms of the speaker, but I still see Shannon on my end while I'm speaking. So I don't know if that needs to change or if there needs to be a spotlight, or if not, I need to change it on my end, but just let me know either way so that we can see. There we go. All right, got it. Thank you. All right, so again, my name's Ernesto Mejia, and I am part of the Cool Speak family. And tonight we get to touch upon understanding family dynamics. Now, we like to keep things short, brief, and to the point. And even I, who someone that works with families, family engagement, parent family engagement all the time, I needed to make sure with Shannon to make sure we were on the same page when we were talking about family dynamics and what that meant. So I want to make sure that we start off with that and that we talk about what do we mean when we're talking about family dynamics. These are just a few of the points as they relate to family dynamics, how we interact with one another. Now, the word family here will be used differently, not necessarily just blood related biological, okay? Behaviors, the types of behaviors that we have. Those of you that are parents, you know what I mean when I'm talking about behaviors. The frustrations, the angst, the stress, the worrying, those are things that not just parents are suffering from, but also our children. The relationships. What type of relationship do we have? Now, I was thinking twice about sharing this story, but I'm going to share it early to give you an idea of what I mean about relationships. Unfortunately for me, I lost my father at a very young age. I was about 13 years old. My mom, I think, was like in her 30s, and she started to date again. Me being the mature 13-year-old boy who was the man of the household did not approve of that. So when you're talking about relationships, I won't give you all the details, but I'll just put it to you this way. Maybe my friends and I tried to jump a guy that tried to date my mom. I'm sure the guy was like, you little kids are cute, so he let us, pretend we were going to beat him up. Nothing happened on either side besides karma. Because then when that happened to me and I started on a new relationship, one of my children wasn't too happy about that. And it wasn't until then that I realized, oh, this is what I made my mother go through. So when we're talking about relationships, it's not just with your mom or dad, stepdad, stepmom. It could be somebody else, a relationship, an aunt, an uncle, grandma, grandpa. So think about that as it relates to family dynamics. When we're talking about communication, you hear me talk about this often because it's a critical piece for our families to function. How we communicate, when we communicate, do we communicate? How honestly do we communicate? How often do we communicate? I'm going to give you an example in case you follow me on social media. I created a video today about me being on vacation, which I currently am on, supposedly, but it's all good. And about 2 weeks worth of vacation, and I already feel parental guilt. What do I mean by that? Maybe I was checking my email too much. Maybe I was worried about posting or checking the company's social media instead of focusing on my child. And that communication didn't happen. And sometimes it doesn't happen between our children and us. And when I'm talking about family dynamics, sometimes our children are talking to someone else, saying and sharing and opening up, and that someone else might be a complete stranger or a speaker that they met that just gave a keynote for 50 minutes. So that's what we're referring to when we talk about communication. And yes, you see right, impact on well-being, your overall well-being and health. As someone that suffered through, I won't call it depression, but I will call it isolation, transitioning from one relationship to another, solitude, that is even more unhealthy than some other things that we tend to think are unhealthy. That solitude, that loneliness takes a toll on us. So that impacts our well being. Our family dynamics play a key component into all of this. Okay. So I wanted to make sure that we gave this first, because the next part is just an example of what we're referring to when we're talking about family dynamics and family types. Okay. So, nuclear family, which is what our typical we call mom, dad, or two-parent household. Right now, the averages are roughly between 60 to 70% of teens, meaning 18 and younger, live in a nuclear family. But that's going to vary depend on when you're seeing it, when you're reading it, I'm sorry, how old the data is, because 25%, which I believe that number's higher, are in a single parent household. Typically, it's the mother. Sometimes it's the father as well. Extended family, you know what that means? Sometimes we have newcomers right now, a lot of them. They're with extended family, an aunt, an uncle, someone else that is considered their family right now. Childless family, yes, that exists. As a Hispanic, many of us think that's a sin. That's okay, and it's normal to have a childless family, okay? And when it, I have cousins who are like 22, and the question, hey, when are you going to have a family? When are you getting married? I'm like, she's 22. Let her breathe, people. Childless family is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. And just because you don't agree doesn't mean that it's wrong or that it's not acceptable. It's actually happening more and more. As a matter of fact, this year's graduating class from high school is the largest class in the history of graduating high school students, and it will not exceed the amount of this year's graduates until about 2040, because the population of students is declining. Okay. So childless families are a lot more common than we believe. Step family, we know what that means. If there's a stepmom, stepdad, okay, and it could be somebody else. Grandparent family, this is something that's growing too. We see a lot of our children being raised by grandparents. And that is nothing bad, and it's nothing to judge upon in any of these family types. However, sometimes we tend to think, and I hear this because I work with parents and students often. Oh, well, they're being raised by their grandparents. To which sometimes I have to ask, okay, so what are you trying to say by that then? And right away they back off. Oh, no, nothing bad. I'm just saying, like, well, it seems like you were trying to insinuate something else. And trust me, grandparents have gone through their duty more than once, twice, three, four, five times in some cases, and they're going through it again, and not just with one grandchild. Bless their hearts for doing everything that they can to help their grandchildren, okay? Same-sex families and blended families, okay? Blended families might mean like you had a relationship, you were in a marriage, it didn't work out, then you started another relationship, and your partner, your wife, your husband came with a child or two, or as we like to call it in my family, prepackaged children. I don't know why they're calling it that, but okay. We're coming with family members, okay? Now, these are just some examples. It's not all of them. And I wanted to make sure that we went through these definitions first to understand, because you have a quiz. I want you to analyze your three closest friends' family dynamics. In the chat, I would like for you to give me an example, just one of one of your friends. What does their family composition look like? And how long has that been their status? How long has this composition been such? So let me help you out again, okay? Nuclear family, single parent, extended family. I'd like to see in the chat what kind of families we have, just for us to understand the diversity, what we have, what we're experiencing, what we're seeing. So in the chat, I would like to see at least 3 or 4 examples of what type of family your closest friend or yourself consider yourself to be. A nuclear family, a single parent family, extended, childless, step family, grandparent, same-sex blended family. Which one of those? Okay. I want to see some examples, because sometimes we haven't even identified this, but yet we're ready to critique it, to criticize it, to say what's wrong with them. Oh, well, you know how it is over there. You know how they're living. You know their living arrangements. And for educators, I want you to be aware of something. There are times that we're a little tough on some of our students, and we have no idea what kind of family dynamics they're coming from. I just worked with a young man in Washington where the entire school, for the most part, discovered as I was working with him for one day that he had been living with his uncle for the past 2 days. I mean, 2 years, extended family. That he and his uncle both worked, that they shared the chores. This was a high school junior. This is a lot to do at that age. So I wanted to see, so we have grandparent family, nuclear family, single parent family, blended family. In case you didn't believe it, I wanted to prove it. Look at the diversity. Look at what we have. Now, you don't have to worry about how long their status has been that, but I want us to be aware of that so that we can better identify it and then do something about it. What do healthy families tend to do? Okay, when we're talking about, our family dynamics, the first one is accepting one another's roles. And that's tough sometimes. It's tough for a child to assume and accept another male, another female trying to take their biological or the person that raised them, who they consider mom or dad's role. When that's not necessarily the case. But when you're younger, you still haven't developed your brain enough to understand that. Unfortunately, I am a horrible example of that because I treated my mother horribly. I got angry at her for trying to continue her life after my father had passed away. She was young. She is and was beautiful. She is a great person. There were dudes lined up, trust me. And then when someone actually jumped into that role, me being the mature person that I was, I said, hey, by the way, you're not going to be my dad and you're not going to take his place. To which his original reply was, I never came in with that intention. And sometimes, again, when we don't understand one another's roles, that makes things very difficult for the entire family. Then we start disliking one another. Then we start challenging authority. Then we start not being respectful to one another. So accepting one another's roles is important, but it's also important for us to clarify it. Sometimes we do need to sit down and say, hey, I love your mom. I love your dad. I have nothing against your mom, your dad. I'm not trying to take anybody's role. I'm trying to be a part of this family and trying to help us all win and grow and be successful. And unfortunately, there's times where we come into new family dynamics and we just assume that everyone understands that. And that's not the case. So we need to work on accepting one another's roles. A healthy family is inclusive. And I'm telling you this because, again, guilt. As one of my friends, Porter, told me, you're raising two crops at the same time. For those of you unaware, I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. But I also have a 21-year-old and a soon-to-be 24-year-old. And they're grown, they're bigger, they're on their own, and there's times we're on a family vacation and they're not with us. And I feel bad. I don't feel like I'm being inclusive. I feel like I'm leaving them out. Granted, they could care less because they're in love and they want to be with their boos, their significant others, but still, there's times where I'd like for all of us to be together. So being inclusive is important, including everybody in decisions and what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it. It matters. The next point is practicing good communication and listening skills. I'm not even as concerned with the communication skills as I am with the listening skills. One of our biggest challenges as parents is listening without interrupting, without solving, and making sure that we fully comprehend what is being said. Sometimes when we hear a child say, well, you don't like me as much because you're not my real mom. You already went into another thought process, how to reply, what to do, and you don't let that child continue. I miss my real mom. I wish she would be around more. And you're kind of taking that role. And I don't know how to process that. I don't know how to deal with that. Sometimes we need to listen more than we actually talk. But practicing good communication and listening is essential. And sometimes it requires us sitting down with our family to just listen and then ask, would you like my input? Would you like my advice? Is there something that you're seeking for me to do here? Because many times our children just want to vent, to let it out. I'm going to give you an example because it just happened to me yesterday. I went and spoke with one of my nieces, and her mom and her dad had divorced maybe like 8 years ago, 9 years ago or so. She's about 19. And she literally told me to my face, I never want to be in a relationship like my mom and dad were, where my mom couldn't be her real self. And she just sacrificed for us, but then decided that's not what she wanted. That was the first time her mom had ever heard that. Her mom was hurt and proud, somewhat understood, but was confused. If we're not practicing good communication and listening skills, this can't come to light. Counseling is great. For some of our students, some of our children, they're in college. It's free. Take it from me. Take advantage of those free opportunities because they cost money. And sometimes it doesn't just require our children. It requires us to seek out professional help too. And just for the record, anyone that hears me say counseling and thinks, oh, well, you only go there if you're broken, let me halt you now and let you know that you are absolutely wrong. Counseling keeps you strong. It keeps you focused. It keeps you solid. It keeps you in a good place to be solid for your family, to be able to support your family better. And then there's practicing more than they preach. You know this as well as I know this. We're good about saying, hey, you need to read. You need to read more. It's important for school. And then your own child says, that's funny. How come I've never seen you read? Whoops. It's easier to just say it, but practicing more than we preach is tougher. I need you to communicate. Well, how come I always hear you and mom fighting about, well, you didn't communicate this to me in advance, and that's why we're short on funds. Well, you didn't tell me that you wanted to do this, and that's why we couldn't go. We need to practice what we preach because our examples are always going to speak louder than our words. And it's important that we do that because by practicing what we preach, sometimes our children catch on. Sometimes it's not the best thing. Don't get me wrong. When my son, who's about to be 24, was about 4, I noticed that he was standing in front of the TV during Michigan football games, hitting the floor, yelling, defense, come on, we got this. And I was like, why are you yelling? And his reply was, well, Papi, this is what you always do when we're on defense. I'm following your lead. Luckily, it wasn't a bad thing. I'm like, well, keep screaming, kid, because we need you right now. So we would both hit the floor and start screaming defense. But sometimes there's things that we're doing that we're not too proud of. Get off that device. 5 minutes later, what do they see us doing? On that device. So again, practicing more than we preach, okay? Now, how can we improve? That's what matters. That's what we need to focus on. Some of these things that we talk about, some of these topics that we talk about aren't just to inform you or let you know, but how can you improve on your communication? A lot of these things that I'm going to suggest or tips that I'm going to share require everyone's participation because you can't just say yourself, well, I need to listen more. You might be right, but maybe your family thinks that you're a great listener. You might say, well, I need to communicate more with my family. When your entire family is like, no, you over communicate. We're good on that front. It helps to hear from the people in your family. It helps to understand, am I saying things the right way? Sometimes when I'm talking about communication, I'm going to give you a great example. It happens a lot in my own community. We always tend to say, as it relates to education, I need you to study so you don't struggle like me. And we say that for about 18 years straight, nonstop. What does that really mean? I want you to get a job that you like. I want you to study something that you enjoy. I want you to be happy. I don't want you to struggle like me. I'd like for you to have benefits. I'd like for you to get a good paying job. I'd like for you to get paid vacations. But the only way we communicate it is, hey, study something. I mean, study hard so you don't end up like me. We need to change the way we communicate sometimes. Listening. How can we improve listening? I knew it was coming up, so I talked about it earlier. Here's the number one way. Zip it. Just listen. You will discover that it's hard to listen, to not solve, to not resolve, to not tell them why it's their fault, to not tell them why this happened, to not tell them why we're in the situation, but listen just to comprehend. I'm curious. Go ahead and in the chat, let me know if you feel you are a great listener. Anybody. And if you're not, feel free to put it in. I work in the field of communication. I am not a great listener and I interrupt way more than I need to. But what do we always say? I need to share this real quick because if not, I'll forget. I could have written it down. It's not true, but we just feel the need to talk all the time. So how many of you consider yourself great listeners? Put it in the chat. And if you're not, you can feel free to say, there's room for improvement. Okay. I see we had one parent out of 15 say yes, they are great listeners. 1 out of 15. See what I mean? Now, when we're talking about inclusivity, we spoke about this earlier. What does that mean? It means making sure that no one feels left out. It means that even if you don't agree, you understand what we're doing and you want them to be a part of it. Sometimes we feel we're being inclusive. I told Shannon I didn't want to share all these stories because I had too many of them, but I have to because it relates to family dynamics. I remember when I started dating my wife, who is now my wife, and not my first two children's biological mother. And it was one of our first family vacations. I was like, man, I'm doing a great job being inclusive. I brought everybody. My son spent like the first day in the pool fighting with the pool water, punching it because he was so upset because he felt I wasn't giving him attention and I was only giving her attention. Was that really being inclusive? Or was that me pretending to be inclusive because I brought them on the trip? This is what I mean. We need to talk about these things so that we better understand. And that means sometimes your significant other needs to understand as well. My son needs some time right now. I need to focus on him. Can we do it together or should I just do it by myself? These are difficult conversations, but conversations that need to be had so that we can improve our inclusivity and not just say that we're being inclusive. And again, when it comes to understanding our roles, have you asked your family? What role do you see me in? Do you see me as the person that's trying to replace someone? Do you see me just as the grandparent? Do you see me, as I just saw the other day, a young boy who's, I think he was 3, calling his grandfather dad because his dad isn't in the picture? What roles do they see? What roles do they comprehend? What roles do they feel? I've worked with students who let me know this is my mom. And then the person interrupts right away. Well, I'm not his biological mom. I'm like, he considers you his mom. That's how he feels about you. That's how much he admires you. That's how much he respects you. You are not his biological mom, but that's how he sees you. That is the role that you are currently playing in this child's life. Feel free to accept it. And there's no need for you to explain anything to me. I'm good. But sometimes we don't want to accept it also. So that's why understanding our roles is critical. You know, for some of my nieces and nephews, I'm the uncle. That's the role that I see. To them, they see me in a completely different role because some of them don't have a dad. And they will literally tell me, you give me like really good advice. You listen. You're more than an uncle. I'm like, well, you can call me super uncle if you want to. I'm cool with that. But they usually don't. So they just say, no, you're just cool. I want you to listen to me. I appreciate you listening to me. So understanding our roles are important. And an activity that we can do with our families at our next family engagement, have them sit down and have them identify their roles and not their titles. Because sometimes we're stuck on the title, dad, mom, son, daughter. No, I want you to identify the role, not just the title. What does that mean? Okay, I'm the head of the household. I am the provider. I am the listener. I am the caregiver. Identifying our roles can help a lot with our family dynamics. And even when you come from a nuclear family, sometimes it's important to understand our roles. Sometimes we get jealous. Well, you only go to mom to talk to her and you never talk to me. Well, you only go to dad when you need this or that. Understanding our roles is important. Okay. So I want to make sure that we leave with this and understand that there's ways to improve. Okay. Now, here's your homework before you leave. And yes, I said homework. Don't get all freaked out. You're not, in elementary, high school, and you can't flunk this one unless you don't do any of the homework. Then you flunked. I'm just being honest with you. Okay. So, first assignment, identify your family structure, nuclear, blended. I don't know what it is, but I gave you some examples. What is your family structure? Talk about it with your family so that they understand it. Identify some of your strengths and some of your challenges. What are some of your strengths as the family, and what are some of your challenges? And lastly, and I'm going to ask you to do this forever, ongoing, nonstop, every day if you can, share your appreciation. Maybe it is a stepson, a stepdaughter. Maybe it isn't even a biological child. But if you let them know how you feel and what they mean to you, it goes a long way. It makes them feel differently. It makes them feel appreciated, accepted. And these things are important. So 3 things for your homework. And I'd like to hear about them the next time we get together, okay? Identify your family structure, identify your family strengths and challenges, and share our appreciation. And when I say share our appreciation, do more than a student did when I asked him to share his appreciation for his mom to tell her how much he loved her. Mom, you know I love you, right? I love your enchiladas. I hope there's a little bit more to it than that, okay? So I want you to share your appreciation and let one another know how you appreciate one another, why you appreciate one another, and what you mean to one another, okay? Thank you very much. And I hope you all enjoyed today's session. And if you didn't, my name is Julian Martinez. And if you did, my name is Ernesto Mejia, okay? Our next session will take place on July 24th, leveraging virtual tools. If you took something beneficial away, do me, Shannon, Matthew, and everybody and the team a favor. Put a comment in the chat and let us know something that you took away, something that you enjoyed, something that was beneficial. If it was the shine off of my head, I'm sorry, but that's always going to be the case. I try to pat it down a little bit so it's not too bad. So thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you leave us a comment in the chat, what you took away, what you enjoyed, and we'll see you again on July 24th to learn about leveraging virtual tools. Okay. Nicole, shout out to Nicole and all the parents. Yes, to all the parents with Nicole. Thank you. I appreciate you. Gracias a ustedes. Have a great day, everyone. I appreciate you.